Now, many of you use an interlocking grip. Hey, the two best players in the history of the game, Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, they both use an interlocking grip. But there's one thing in there that you are doing a real death move with, and that is interlocking way too deep, and then you end up having competing hands for those snuff boxes. What the heck is a snuff box? Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this show. So if your grip looks like this, and you're playing Army golf, you have competing hands for where the wrists are going to tend to hinge. Now, if I'm going fishing, my wrist is going to hinge on what we call the anatomical snuff box. So you notice how my wrist is hinging here on that little cavity. And then I'm releasing my fishing line out toward the target. So if I'm slashing a sword, I'm doing the same thing. Everything is loading up on that snuff box. Notice how the elbow's leading, then the hand. See the position of my hand? Cutting through. And then the sword tip catches up to my hand and releases the hand. And then I've got this beautiful re-hinge on the other side to slow things down, to keep things what we call self-preserved. So release, release, release. That's one of the major natural things that we do. If we want to throw football, hammer nails, it's all done on that snuff box. So when your hands are, when you interlock your grip too deep, you end up having your hands underneath. And naturally, you'll notice your hands, they want to hang alongside your body. So what happens is, if I was to open up my arms, I'm using a lot of different muscle groups to do that, and I relax. Notice how they want to snap back? They've got stress memory. Your body has its own structure. And your ligaments and tendons and muscles, they wrap around your bone structure in a very specific way so that you're not just a bag of bones hanging on the ground or flopping all over the place. It's got structure to it. So if I close too much and I let it come back. So if you've got one hand like this and the other hand like that, and then you're trying to hinge your wrist at the top of the swing, something's got to give. So if I give with my right and I let my right hand hinge, you'll notice now my left wrist is bowing like crazy and my club face is ending up facing the sky, very closed. This is what you'll see Brooks Koepka do. Thing is, he's at the top of the food chain. You're not. So I'm going to show you something more efficient than that. So if I go to the top of the backswing and I do that and then I swing, well, what ends up happening is I end up overdrawing the ball to the left of the green. And then it'll also go further than usual. Now, if you do the opposite and you get to the top of the backswing and your left wrist hinges properly, then the face of the club is pointing straight down toward the ground. It's wide open. So watch what happens now. So I'm going to have to aim way left for this one. Before we continue with this really important point, if you're enjoying what you see so far, please take the time to subscribe, click that bell to make sure you don't, miss any future videos. Give us a like, and of course, if you have a question or a comment, we'd love to hear about it. Please put it down below. Yes on the wrist, whip through. Wow, look at that. That face ended up super open. That was really well struck. And instead of 170 yards that I was carrying on the previous one, I'm now 140 nutted with a 7-iron. So not exactly what you're looking for, is it? So what we're looking for is a grip where your hands are going to be able to hinge together in unison, all right? So let's start with just a basic karate chop. So if I had a board here and I wanted to drive through the board, this part of my hand is a lot more solid than this. This is just a slap. I can't slap through the board. I need to drive through the board. So now you take the board and you put it horizontal or vertically, and now I'm going to take it horizontally through. So watch both hands. There. So I want to feel like everything is in unison, moving through the board and into that direction. And everyone has different variability, but you'll notice that the vast majority of players on tour, Webb Simpson, Paul Azinger, Bubba Watson, man, the list is humongous as to who has a strong grip. And the strong grip far outnumber the weak grips out there, okay? So they were just comparing, actually. There was Matt Fitzpatrick's grip to Morikawa's grip. And Morikawa was super, you know, weak like that, and he plays fade. And he allows that wrist to bow when he's through the ball. And so he's been able to lock it in a certain way, and very similar to what Brooks Koepka does. But then you've got Fitzpatrick, who's much stronger on that side. He brings the other hand over. See how the hands are? So having a strong left hand and a weak right hand is actually not a bad way to go. Moo, you tend to do that as well, right? So, and then you've got the other grippers like, you know, Paul Azinger and Bubba Watson, who are more strong on top and strong on the bottom, and we're just hammering nails that way. So when I get into this position, notice my wrists are hinging together, staying together. See the wrist, the unhinging of it? And then I'm collecting the ball from here, releasing the ball into that direction. I'm somewhere in between. So the key here is there's a natural release that's going to occur. So the first thing you do is you give it some slashes of the sword. So you notice if my right hand is going to release this way, my left hand is going to release underneath it. I don't want to hang on with the left because then that holds the right hand underneath. So I take a grip that allows me to hinge and release very naturally, and then I'll take it through the golf shot. So I want my peak speed to be out there. So what we do at Wisdom in Golf is we provide you with a task that is through the ball. So if I take grass clippings from here and I whip them into the wall, my attention is on the wall, and I'm going to take momentum and send some grass clippings out there into the wall. That's even better. That felt like peak speed was a little bit more out here than down here. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to allow my arm club unit to load and release into that picture with complete freedom, abandon, no interference. Here we go. So I release it out there, and with the right amount of ingredients, get in. Oh, how about that? So I am 3 feet offline of where I ended up, but that looked like it almost went in the hole. My hole's at 180, and that carried 180, so I probably missed the hole by an inch. And so, yes, and we do have holes in one on this thing. I got 2 last week, the 11th and 12th since we started here. So I'm zoning in on what works for me. So the key is whip that way through a specific intermediate point. So I'm going in that direction with my grass clippings, and I'm whipping the grass clippings out towards my target, and I observe my ball flight. So when you interlock, don't interlock all the way in. Can you see now how my hands have been compromised? You'll notice the best interlockers like Jack and Tiger, they interlock partially, not fully. So this is what it's going to look like. I use an overlapping grip. So if I go from there to overlap, notice my grip's pretty much the same. And if I went 10 finger, it would be the same. So notice how I'm always in a position where both wrists can hinge together on those anatomical snuff boxes. They're going to be allowed to hinge, allowed to release and re-hinge in my finish. See that re-hinge? You're going to see the vast majority of PGA Tour players re-hinge on those snuff boxes in the finish. So it looks like this. See that? So it hinges together, releases and re-hinges together, and then you see how the ball flies. So if you have both wrists hinging nicely together and you whip through and the ball keeps going out to the right, well, all you got to do is let go of the grip. Watch how I close this. Close the face. Notice my grip is the same. Close it more. That's obviously way too close, but notice my hands hinge, hinge, hinge. If I did this, oops, how am I going to hinge now? You can't close your grip like that. This is in a very compromised position. There's been a lot of wrist injuries on tour that required a lot of surgeries. Don't be one of those. This is the most powerful position for your hands. It's the same position that we use for baseball. It's the same position that we use for tennis. You never go through a tennis ball like this, you get your wrist ripped right off. You don't hammer nails like that, you get your wrist ripped off. You don't cast fishing poles like that. So you can see where I'm going. This is how human beings on planet Earth deliver, tools. That's the best way and most efficient way and the least prone to injury that you can possibly have. I'm glad you stuck with the video. This really important information, isn't it? And then, hey, if you have it too closed, this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to send grass clippings out to the target. Here we go. Send the clippings. Whoa. So notice that started straight. Big time long. Notice I got more distance. It's like a 6.5 iron that I just hit with. So that's 190 yards carry, but 2,000 spin to the left. Now if I have it too open, and I'm going to send those grass clippings out there to the target. Get out there. Whoa, that's way too open. And that's what people don't realize. That looks open, but then at impact it's going to be here, and the ball just glances off the face, and off you go. And that was 143 carry with 3,000 side spin to the right. So back to my normal position. It feels now that when I send those grass clippings in the direction I want the ball to start, that the ball will behave in the air the way I want it to. What's that going to look like again? What's that feel like? Oh yeah, send those grass clippings that way. And there you have it. Oh, that might be close again. Woo! Right over the flagstick. Enjoy that. See you next week.